Having traveled to 4 national political conventions, I can tell you they are an extravaganza unlike any other. Covering them virtually, not the same. But fortunately, I will not be alone. All week, our analysts, Republican Dick Wadhams and Democrat Mike Dino, will be here with reality checks daily for us, so that's great. You guys have been to a few of these, and Mike, even CEO of the 2008 DNC here. So, you know, these are raise the rafters kind of events. Can a virtual event really energize the base? Mike?
Well, I'll start out. I think it's hard because we've been confined to our homes or close to them for almost 5 months in some parts of our country. People have been fearful to leave and get too far away, and so they've been watching a lot of things on video. The latest movies, we're watching the NBA, the NHL playoffs, and so we have a lot of things that are at our disposal via video, whether it's a TV or our iPad or our phone even, and so I'm unsure how this is going to play out. It's uncharted territory. And I think in some ways what President Trump is doing in terms of competing with it gives him more of a level playing field than the opposing candidates have had in the past.
It was interesting. I mean, really, we're a bunch of couch potatoes these days. How do you electrify that, Dick?
Well, I don't think you can, although I do think there will be interest in the speeches this week, particularly once we get to later in the week when Biden and Kamala Harris speak. But even tonight, I think there will be interest in Michelle Obama. There are other speakers tonight, obviously Bernie Sanders. I think there will be interest, but it is hard, Sean. I think about some of the more dramatic moments at conventions over the years. Barack Obama's speech as a state senator to the 2004 National Convention that I'm sure Mike remembers, that electrified the Democratic Party and really propelled him into the presidency 4 years later. And you just don't get that with no crowd. And yet, I think there will be a lot of substance in these speeches, and we're going to get a real flavor for which direction the Democratic Party will go tonight and through the week.
I thought, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I thought it was interesting Bernie Sanders negotiated 8 minutes. And Sean, that's going to be the hard part here. You can watch a 20 or 30-minute speech with a lot of cheering and hoopla, as you mentioned, but can you watch an 8-minute speech where it's just somebody, staring at you on a Zoom screen?
That's a good point. Well, if you can watch anybody for any length of time, Michelle Obama, she holds people's attention. One of the most popular public figures in the world, so no surprise that she is the keynote on opening night. What do you expect from her, and who is her speech going to be directed at, Dick?
Well, I think she's going to try to remind people of the good old days of the Obama-Biden administration, and that kind of a return to those days. But she's also going to be trying to remind people of the historic nature of this Democratic ticket, and it is historic with the addition of Kamala Harris onto the ticket. But I'm not sure that a lot of even Democrats really want to go back to the good old days of Obama, because I think a lot of Democrats in this Democratic Party today are thinking, we had 8 years under Obama and we didn't get nearly as much accomplished on our more liberal agenda than we should have. And so I think she will she's beloved in the party. She's very well respected across the nation. But I'm not sure that the return to the good old days of Obama-Biden is exactly what those delegates and what Democrats across the country want to hear tonight.
What do you think, Mike?
Well, I think she's sort of the unpolitical or non-political conscience of the party. Certainly her husband is really the political conscience of the party at this point. But she brings sort of a non-political, in no way disrespectful maternal aspect to her presence. And I think she is very attractive to suburban women and to the millennials. And I think she really will speak to those two groups, giving them a comfort with this political event, as well as with the Biden-Harris ticket. So she kind of covers a couple demographics, and she does it in a way that's not politically overt.
Right. She transcends politics. I agree with that. So in addition to her keynote tonight, you mentioned Senator Bernie Sanders. So he's going to have his 8 minutes. And former Republican Governor John Kasich out of Ohio will also be speaking. I mean, this is across the political spectrum we've got on the stage tonight, the theme being unity, of course. Mike, let me start with you. Has Biden's pick of Kamala Harris, do you think, brought some of those Bernie Sanders supporters on board?
Well, first of all, you had to be amazed about how Dick lighted up when you mentioned John Kasich. So,
Lit up. I don't know about that, but
yeah, no. But tell me again the question. I'm sorry.
has Biden's pick of Kamala Harris, has that made a difference, do you think, with Bernie Sanders supporters?
Yes, I think it has, because you know, she was a fierce campaigner, and equally fierce as Bernie. She may not be as over on the liberal left as much as he is, but she signifies a different path for a candidate, for a vice presidential candidate. It's not the same mold. It's not a white guy, and I think it gives a bridge. It gives a bridge, going back to the old Clinton imagery, bridge to the future. It gives a bridge, though, from Bernie's people to Biden.
Right.
And I think it's very effective, and that's why it was such a good pick.
Of course, Clinton will be speaking too. So, Dick, back to John Kasich now. Do you think, you remember we had the Reagan Democrats in 1980? Are we going to see the Biden Republicans in 2020?
Well, I have a two-word response to John Kasich being there tonight. Big deal.
I thought that was it.
He's a washed-up former governor of Ohio.
Oh.
He has no political future in front of him in the Democratic Party or the Republican Party. So once again, big deal. But to your question about Biden Republicans, one of the significant findings of the CNN poll, and actually there was some movement in the other polls as well that showed a much bigger Biden lead, but there was some slippage, Sean, among conservatives, Republicans, and Republican-leaning independents in previous polls since the coronavirus pandemic started. A lot of those voters are starting to gravitate back to Trump, and that is closing the gap. So despite the efforts, in fact, millions of dollars of spending by the so-called Lincoln Project, which are the anti-Trump Republicans, it doesn't seem to be having any impact other than anchoring people who already hate Trump anyway. But listen, this race is going to close. The question is, can Trump truly ultimately get those suburban voters who were with him 4 years ago to stick with him? Who then voted Democratic in 2018? That's a big question, and we'll see if he can.
He's pulling out all the stops. It's interesting. Traditionally, you saw, the other party, when one party's convention was going on, the other party kind of laid low and let that happen, right? Not with President Trump. He's doing this, swing through some of these swing states. He's got ads up and running. So is this the new normal, Dick?
I think it is. I mean, but as Mike said earlier, I mean, this is with Trump, he's not going to sit back and watch this for 4 days. I mean, he's going to go out there. And of course, it actually benefits him that this is not a real convention. I mean, a traditional convention going on. I mean, it is virtual. And yeah, I mean, frankly, I think it's smart of Trump to do what he's doing. I mean, he's going to 4 swing states, including Scranton, Pennsylvania, which is Biden's birthplace and where he grew up. So I think it was smart of Trump. I mean, I just hope Trump will stay within the bounds of rationality. Sometimes when he gets out there, he lets himself get carried away. So we'll see.
He'll pick up some media attention for sure this week, Mike.
Yes, he will.
Yeah, Dick said it perfectly. I think what's an interesting thing that's happening here, though, is House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, who will be a speaker, has brought the U.S. House back into session to talk about this issue of about the U.S. Post Office and what it may do to impact the election, and even to introduce legislation that may be passed by Saturday, and to have hearings the day or the week of the Republican convention with the post office master who's agreed to show up. So each side is looking at how to deal with this this new frontier of political conventions.
Tit for tat, I guess.
Yeah.
So we've got, what, 3 new polls out today, all of them showing the race tightening to varying degrees. Biden's still in the lead. What do we make of polls this year, Mike?
Well, the national polls, which I think were largely accurate because Hillary did win, the general vote, just, they in their best way give a sentiment of where the people are nationally as a whole. I think you really, and Dick alluded to this, and Sean, you even mentioned in terms of where Trump is visiting this week. I mean, it comes down to state by state. I mean, and Biden has leads in Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. He's showing some strength in Arizona, North Carolina, even Florida to some extent. And it's the Electoral College, and you can't miss that. And so it really will come down to the strength in each state that's going to add up to that total electoral vote when it's said and done.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, though, they're skeptical of these polls, Dick, after 2016.
They are, and I know a lot of my fellow Republicans, when they talk about the Biden lead, they say, well, they weren't right in 2016, and yet you cannot dismiss them. I mean, I do think that Biden has a substantial advantage right now. That is going to close. It was interesting to me, Sean, in the CNN poll, that they did a poll of just 11 what they considered battleground states, and they threw Colorado into that.
Right.
And I just was fascinated by that because they must see something in their own polling that shows. And then when you add in the fact that Biden is spending money here now, I still think Biden has a tremendous advantage here. But yet we've seen a couple of things to suggest that maybe Colorado isn't as far gone as some people thought.
Well, Dick, wouldn't you think, though, maybe Trump feels if he loses one of those other states that maybe he can sneak in and get Colorado?
It's a backstop.
Well, yeah, they are spending money now here, Mike. I mean, they've got a very aggressive ground operation, and they've got a lot of people. They've got a lot of paid staff on the ground, and so now he's not running ads here yet.
But he's got his best. He's sent in his best surrogates, his kids.
Yeah.
I interviewed
Yeah,
Ivanka,
right.
Trump Jr., right?
Right.
Jill Biden
you've hung out
even
with
here
them all.
too. Yeah. What's that?
You've hung out with them all so
Yeah,
far.
that's right. And Jill Biden too,
Yeah.
from her home.
Yeah.
Hers was virtual.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it'll be an interesting night, and I definitely look forward to your analysis tomorrow. And I will have a full wrap of tonight's festivities on CBS4 at 10. We'll see you then.
Thanks.